It's the Cannon Sports Podcast. On today's episode, we're joined by the head coach of the Orange Lutheran High School baseball program, Eric Borba. Welcome in, everybody, to the Cannon Sports Podcast. We are inside the locker room at Orange Lutheran High School. I'm Phil George, and with me, my guest today is the head coach of the #1 baseball program in the state of California, Coach Eric Borba. Coach, welcome to the show.
Phil, thanks for having me. Really looking forward to this.
We're excited to have you as well. We're going to get right into it and talk about this Orange Lutheran team. Like I said, a dominant run all season long, held the #1 ranking in the state and #8 ranking nationally for a big part of the season. And even though your season may have come to an end a little bit earlier than you would have liked, still a lot to be proud of. So tell me, what are your biggest takeaways from Orange Lutheran's season this year?
You know, it was a great year. It's unfortunate that, 3-hour time frame or something can end a season with the group of guys we had. They really had a lot. It really accomplished a lot this year. It was an unbelievable group of kids to work with every day. Probably as fun as I've had, in a season in 24 years as a head coach. I enjoyed going to the ballpark more this year than any other year, and it's a tribute to these kids. I've known a lot of these kids for several years now, and it was tough. It was definitely gut-wrenching on Friday to lose that game. But overall the takeaway is it was a tremendous season. These guys, can't measure themselves based on one game. I think that life is a journey, and this is just another chapter in that journey for them. And there were so many good takeaways from the season that we don't want to look at the negative, from Friday, and look at all the positive things that they accomplished throughout the year and how it prepared them for the next chapter.
And a couple of those takeaways are some of the really high-level players that you have on this team. Your shortstop, Mikey Romero, he's highly ranked on MLB's list of top draft-eligible prospects. Oliver Santos and the pitching staff really putting up video game numbers all season long. Talk about the contributions of some of those guys on this team.
Yeah, they're special guys. Starting with Mikey, I think he's the best shortstop in the country. The kid's special. I talk to scouts all the time, and they want to ask about makeup and whatnot because they see the skill set on the field, and that's second to none. But the makeup of Mikey Romero is something that you can't even really, describe. I think I mentioned the names of Derek Jeter and Tom Brady because the makeup of Mikey is that he's a leader. He's a guy that just understands what it takes to be successful on and off the field, and guys gravitate towards him. He makes everybody around him better. Just an ultimate leader. And then, on the field, I think you saw in the last week of Trinity League play, for example, the kid went 7 for 8 with 3 home runs. He's a game changer offensively. He ended up hitting around 370 for us this year, drove in 26 runs, I believe. Just a tremendous player, and he can man shortstop with the best of them.
Now, I want to pause. You use that word makeup. That's something that we hear a lot of in baseball circles, but that's obviously something that is difficult to quantify. There's no statistic for that. How do you go about identifying a player's makeup, and what does that term refer to?
Yeah, I think makeup refers to the overall character of the kid and what he brings to a team off the field. Between the lines, it's real easy to see, and you can see stats and tools and those kinds of things. But the makeup is a combination of a lot of different things for us. It's character, it's reliability, it's work ethic, it's leadership abilities. And I think when you talk about Mikey, all of those things are off the charts. He works tremendously hard and just sets the tone for the rest of the team. When we were down 4-0 early in the first game of the playoffs, and it was Mikey that kind of brought the team together and talked to the team. And it's nice as a coach when you have a player that can take over like that, because we say good teams are led by good coaches, but championship teams are led by good players.
And we're going to get a little bit deeper into Mikey and some of the possible major leaguers that you have on this staff, but it's not just 1 or 2 players. It's not just the handful of draft guys that propel a team to a #1 overall ranking in a state, especially a state as deep as California. It really is a total team effort.
It really is. I mean, the pitching, especially in the Trinity League, we play 3 games a week, so you got to have a number of pitchers that can go out there and keep you in games, and you're talking 6 of the best teams in the country, all going at it, and then you're going to have injuries. You play 30-game schedule, roughly, you have a lot of different things, and guys, again, we're dealing with teenage kids, so all of the things that they deal with throughout the course of the season come into play too. So, I mean, Oliver Santos and Luis Rodriguez on the mound, they're 2 potential, draft prospects. I think it's about as good of a 1-2 punch as we've had. I mean, we've had some really good ones in the past. Cole Winn and Max Ragic and Christian Rodriguez. You go back to, 2010, and we had Bobby Wheatley and Andrew Thurman. I mean, we've had a lot of good 1-2 punches, and this one's right up there with the best of them. Those 2 guys are pretty special. And the nice thing was one was right-handed, one was left-handed, so we could play the matchup game a little bit as well. And
as players move on and as the talent pipeline keeps flowing, what's your outlook for the next season look like?
Well, we graduate a lot. I'm not, as much as a coach, you kind of have to look into the future. I'm not ready to completely look at next year's team yet. Of course. We graduate 6 guys in the lineup, which are going to be tough pieces to fill. There's no doubt about it. We do have a good core of guys coming back. Offensively, we're going to be led by Derek Curiel, Ben Ryland, and my son, Casey Borba. Those are 3 pretty good players that we're going to have to build the offense around. And then, the pitching staff, we had some guys that got some good innings this year. It'll be led by Evan Miranda, the Texas commit. He'll be a senior next year. And then we have a couple of sophomores, and Brady Strom and Ross Clark, another junior, to be senior, Jordan Cole. Those guys got some innings this year that are really going to be important for their experience and paving the way for next year.
Another hallmark achievement of some of the guys that still remain on this year's Orange Lutheran team is the dominance that you guys showed in the USA Baseball National High School Invitational. You guys won the tournament 3 years in a row from 2017 to 2019. It took a global pandemic to keep you from winning a 4th one. How special was that run for you guys?
It's, that tournament it's pretty special, and I think that it's put Orange Lutheran on the map. The baseball program now is recognizable, and I think the experience for kids to go through that and compete against the best teams in the country. We came up a little bit short this year. I think the team we got beat by in the semifinals out there as we went for the 4th one in a row was Stoneman Douglas from Florida, and they're arguably the best team I've ever seen in high school.
I think they're ranked number 1 in the nation.
Yeah, they are right now. That team was special. We ran into an arm that was like 93 to 97 miles an hour in the 3rd game of the tournament, and so they have an amazing group of guys over there, and their coach, they just run a great program. And it took a juggernaut to knock us off, because we had gotten to the semifinals, and we came back and won our 4th game in the tournament as well. So we have won now 15 of 16 games there, which is I think that's one of the things that we talk about, all the good things that these guys accomplished. And Carson Bowen was a catcher and actually got the final out in 2019, so he was part of that 2019 team that won that tournament. So I think it's really kind of proven our value, what we put in as a coach. I think that kind of just justifies the work that you put in, the sacrifices as a coach to get your team there, and then the experience for the kids that they'll take with them forever.
Right. It's one thing to achieve a good result in the Southern section or in statewide play. It's another thing entirely to go into an environment like that and do it on the national stage. What does that do for the mentality of a team to go into an environment like that and come out and say, no, we're not just California's best, we are America's best?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think it's something that our kids look forward to, and since we've been to that tournament 6 times now, it's something that a lot of our kids walk in. Usually it's, for most Southern California schools, it's walk in and let's win a CIF championship. And I think for our kids, it's another level of winning a championship for them. So they come in as freshmen looking forward to being able to travel to Carolina in their 4 years and play in the NHSI. From a mentality standpoint, I think it just gives you that confidence, when you're playing amongst the best. I think as a coach, having a team that expects to win is very important. The toughest thing when I was younger is getting teams, to get over that hump of playing not to lose. And I think that when you have the expectation that you're going to win, it makes things a lot easier. You got to make sure that you dot your I's and cross your T's to stay on top of everything. But when the kids believe that we can play with anything, they play with another level of confidence, which that all has helped.
You mentioned that 3-year run through the tournament as what put Orange Lutheran baseball on the map. That's not the first time that you've been credited with really putting a program on the map. You essentially built the current incarnation of the De La Salle program up north, and they're still competing and doing very well. You've done something similar down here with Orange Lutheran. How rewarding is that for you to come into a program and not just continue what's already being done, but raise the bar as much as you have at both of those programs?
Yeah, it's funny. The competitor that I am, I don't know that I can take credit for any of that stuff. I still feel like there's, even going back to the De La Salle days, they were a very strong program before I got there, and I was blessed to be part of that. And I still look back at those years as, hey, we could have done more than we did. We were able to win 2 CIF championships there in 5 years, but, I still feel like there was some unfinished business there. And then being here at Orange Lutheran now, just finishing my 14th year, we haven't been able to win that CIF title. So me being the competitor that I am, I don't feel like the job is done. And I think one day, 20 years from now, I might look back and really be proud of the accomplishments. But as I sit here today, I feel like we still have so long to go. So I appreciate the comments, and I'm very proud of what we've accomplished, but I feel like there's still a lot of work to be done.
I want to get into your background in coaching and just some general talk about high school baseball coaching in general, starting off with a man by the name of John Gels, who served as your inspiration to get into this field. Who is John Gels, and what has he meant to you in your career?
John Geltz is the head baseball coach at Sonoma State University. I believe he's been there close to 40 years now as the head coach. I know he's got over 1,100 wins. He's probably my biggest mentor as a coach. Had the privilege to play for him in 1996 and 7. You're aging me here. But I played for Coach Geltz in 96 and 97, and we've remained good friends ever since. He was kind of the first guy, although I had an idea that I wanted to coach. I wasn't sure if that was the route I was going to go, and he was kind of the guy that said, hey, you're going to make one heck of a coach, and really was that final push to get into coaching. And we've retained that relationship all the way through. He actually came down twice this year, came to our practices, spoke with our team, just his passion for the game, but more importantly, his passion for his players. The relationships that he has with his former players, it speaks for itself. And I think it's just, really been kind of a rock for me in my growth as a coach, that the things off the field are more important than things on the field.
You've spoken at length about the importance of preparing players for life, not just for the next level. And that's something, one of our more recent guests was Lorenzo Romar, the head men's basketball coach at Pepperdine University. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that stuck out to me is when he said it's actually more notable to him when there's a player that he fails to help. It's more notable for him than the player that he actually helps, because that's the default. Right. And it sounds like that's what John Gels meant to you, and it sounds like that's something that you try and pay forward to your own players.
No doubt. I think, that connectivity you have with all of your players is vital. And it is, the negative things, or not even that they're negative, but when you don't have that connection with players, those are the things that you kind of look on the most, I think, in reflecting on the team, which I've been able to do a lot of reflecting over the last 48 hours. You think about all the missed opportunities that you had, and developing those relationships. And although I think that, all of us coaches have a bigger impact than we realize on even, the kid that you might not be the closest with, you still wish that you were able to continue that relationship. I was talking with Coach Farrell, our associate head coach, this morning, and I was like, I felt like I lost a best friend when we lost on Friday, because those kids become a piece of you, But yeah, it's preparing them for life. I mean, this is just a very, very small chapter in their lives. It's a small section. We lay out a big cord and put a white piece of tape on the cord, and that's the season, for their life. It's a lot longer. There's a lot more things to accomplish. And I think that baseball just provides so many life lessons for kids, and there's so many, you could go into so many different areas of how it teaches leadership and accountability and resilience, and you could go on and on. I think it's our job as coaches to make sure that we try to highlight that for them so that, hey, when we do look back on this season, although it hurts right now, overall they learned a lot through our program and through the times that they had here. And that's what we want to focus on as coaches.
We have a reminder sitting here on this table of one of those players and what you meant to him, that helmet. You want to tell us what's written on that helmet and who it's from?
Yeah, that helmet's from Cole Wynn. He's actually a pitcher, so the helmet, but he was a hitter when he played at Orange Lutheran and had quite a season actually as a hitter, but now he's in AAA with the Texas Rangers. And, Cole's a funny story. He moved into California for his senior year of baseball to play at Orange Lutheran. It kind of goes to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, There was no relationship between the two, the school and him, or me and him. I didn't even know who Cole Wynn was when I heard he was coming to Orange Lutheran. I had to look him up online and make some phone calls to see who he was. And he and his family ended up moving to California, and he played for us his senior year. He won the Gatorade State Player of the Year in 2018 after winning the Gatorade State Player of the Year in Colorado in 2017. And he was just, I'll tell you what, he's going to be in the big leagues real soon as a pitcher, which speaks volumes to just the talent level that he had. But he was the kid that the first day he showed up at practice, he was with his infield glove here an hour early taking ground balls. And, just a special young man. And I think on that helmet it just says, thank you for accepting me into the family at Orange Lutheran. And, that he really enjoyed it. And it sums it up. I think we had a huge impact. I just talked to Cole on the phone last weekend after his start. It's pretty special, the relationships, again, that we get to build as coaches. And he's just one of the very, very fine players that I've been able to coach.
So whether it's a player like Cole Wynn who's knocking on the doorstep of the major leagues, or a player who, once they leave Orange Lutheran, they're going to hang it up and not play baseball again, regardless of which specific individual we're talking about, when it's all said and done, what do you want that player to look back on and say, this is what Coach Borba and this program meant to me?
Yeah, I think it's just the preparation, right? I love it because Thanksgiving and, throughout the season, we have so many alums that come back and spend time here. One of my coaches, Patrick Murphy, was with us in 2016, and he returned this year after 5 or 6 years away. He said to me in the middle of the year, man, I just can't believe how many alums come back and hang out in the dugout, or they come lift weights and hang out in the office. And I think that sums it up, exactly what you're saying. They come back because they know the impact, and there's nothing better than the emails or the texts, the messages online, whatever it might be, the phone calls from former players just thanking you. And I think we've all been through that process, right? When we're a teenager, we think we know everything, but we don't really know much. And then as we start to see the value in what people are trying to do to help you out, they realize that, and those moments are special. So, those players that graduate, I want them just to say, hey, this was something that helped me to become better, a better employee, a better father, a better husband, better at the next level, whatever it might be. And I think, our job is to prepare them for that next chapter.
It obviously takes, in order to be a successful program, like we've talked about, it takes talented players and effort and buy-in from them. It takes a talented coach and somebody who can bring that baseball knowledge, but also the personal care to the athlete, somebody who really cares about his players like you do. It also takes investment from the administration, and I know that that's something that you've lauded the administration here at Orange Lutheran for. When you talk about investment, does that refer to just financial investment, or is there an attitude component to it as well?
Yeah, no, I think the financial piece is secondary. I think the commitment to supporting athletics is what's important. And I think, it starts with Vince Brown, our athletic director, that's a former baseball coach for years and years in Orange County, just really being there to support us as coaches. But I think the school, we have 1,400 students at the school, and we have over 1,000 of them that play sports here. And it's a priority when you walk around campus. The facilities are, as nice as any high school that I've been able to see. And so when I'm talking about support, I think the academic support they get here with the academic advisors that help our athletes, the strength and conditioning coaches. We have Bubba Reynolds, our strength coach, that does a tremendous job with our guys in the weight room. Ryan Lisk and Jessica Gay are our athletic trainers that take care of our kids with any medical issues, any kind of treatment, any kind of, care that they need. I mean, it's just the support system that's in place here with 3 full-time trainers, 3 full-time strength coaches, an academic advisor that travels with us to North Carolina. Like, that's the support that I'm talking about. It takes an army. It really does. We say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, we're trying to raise 75 to 80 of them in our program, and so there's a lot of pieces to that. And I think that, when you walk through campus, our players are recognized by who they are, and not just in baseball, it's in all sports. And the teachers really care about them, and they understand what it takes to be an athlete. They understand the emotional stages of a lot of our kids and develop those relationships too. So I think just the collaboration of the school and the coaches, the expectation here is that we're going to be successful in sports and that our kids are going to graduate and go on to 4-year universities and have the opportunity to compete if they want.
And I imagine that that's something that as a result of that investment, there are real tangible impacts that you could see on and off the field that are a direct result of that. Yeah, no question. I mean, it's everything. I think that family environment that we create in our program is just so widespread throughout the school. It makes it really comfortable for our kids to go out, put the uniform on, and take the field on, at Hart Park and go out and compete because of the support they have behind them. And it's not even though it's an individual sport, it's not an individual individual achievement that creates wins. There's a lot of pieces that go to it, and it just makes it that much more easy. When we talk about athletics, we talk a lot in terms about grind and work, and usually we're having those conversations as it pertains to the athletes themselves. And while that's very much true, there is very much, especially at the high school level, a grind when it comes to coaching. Can you tell me about that life? Yeah, I mean, it is, like you said, it's my life completely changed over the weekend, now that we don't have practice after school, don't have scouting to go do, whatever it might be. I mean, yeah, I think if you want to be successful, you have to put in the time. And the time is in building relationships with families, building relationships with the kids, doing team dinners, building those retreats. I mean, if I start back in the fall, there's several times that we travel just to build that team chemistry. We go to team camps in San Diego, we'll go to Las Vegas. We do things like that, and that's time away from your family typically. I'm pretty fortunate this year with my son on the team. My family was pretty much there every step of the way. So you definitely need a supporting wife. It makes it easier when she's mom too. But, I think that we spend probably 60 hours a week, at our job. I mean, it's preparing scouting reports, it's preparing practice plans, it's doing scheduling, it's umpires, it's travel, so it's a nonstop job. I mean, I would say that, 80% of my days go to the baseball field, and I have another job on campus, we're in admissions there. So it just takes a lot of time. And so although it's a little bit of a breath of fresh air when the season's over because you get to kind of breathe for a little bit, it doesn't last long because you start right back up. And it's, we went to taking the summers off, not doing anything as a program in the summers and letting our kids go play travel ball about 7-8 years ago. And I think it was the best thing ever because I really get to be dad, really get to be husband in the summer. And that's helped a lot. But between August and the beginning of June, it's a full-time job, and it definitely is a grind. We play at night, we practice at night a lot of times, so I'm gone at 8 a.m. and back at 10 o'clock at night, and so, but I love it. I mean, it's what gets me up in the morning, the competition piece, the ability to have an impact on kids, the relational piece. I mean, there's just so much to it that's so rewarding that it's all worth it. What advice would you have for coaches who are maybe closer to the beginning of that path than where you are and are really weighing getting into coaching but not quite sure if they really want to commit to all that time away from their family or those extra hours in a job elsewhere on campus other than coaching? What would you say to them? Get ready for the grind, like you said. But no, I think, the biggest thing is really talking to experienced coaches that have done it, because you can't really prepare for what it looks like from a time standpoint when you have a family. That's the biggest thing. I think when you're single and don't have a wife or kids, it's a lot easier. And I think most of the young coaches know that because as a player, you put in kind of the same kind of hours.
But when you have a family, I think that's the biggest thing, is to really understand how much time it is and make sure that that communication piece with your spouse is there, number one. But experience and communication, I think that the greatest things that I've learned from talking to other coaches, whether it be in podcasts like this or at the coaches convention, the ABCA every year, or just calling up John Savage and having a conversation with him at UCLA, or any of the college coaches. We're so blessed to have such amazing coaches in Southern California, and they're all such great guys because they'll take a phone call and have that conversation. I mean, I think just be a sponge, right? Take it all in. I think you have to prepare for a full-time job, almost 2 full-time jobs, because it's really tough to make a living just coaching. So you're going to have 2 full-time jobs, and you got to be willing to put in the work. And I think that your players are going to respond to how you go about it. And if you can't handle that workload, or you can't handle that grind, your kids aren't going to be able to handle it. I mean, I think we have to show the passion in what we're doing, and it's not really going to work. I mean, it's going to school, it's going to the ball field. I don't really call it work, and I think that a successful coach has to see it that way.
Do you think your players fully recognize the amount of effort that you're putting in on off the field, and how does that translate to their own effort?
Yeah, I think that sometimes teenagers, get locked into their own thing. I don't know if they do. I mean, there's no doubt they do. I don't know that they realize exactly how much time goes into it. But they're very, at Orange Lutheran, we just have such amazing kids here that are raised the right way. And so they're very appreciative of everything we do. I mean, from the field work and the preparation stuff, they understand what it takes. And I think that, again, hard work is how you get places in life, right? And I think it's all about relationships, and one of the biggest things I say to our players is good things happen to good people. So when you're working hard, you're going to be rewarded in the long run. I mean, it's not always that way, but I think over the long course of life and the long course of your career, the best things are going to happen to the people that work the hardest and treat people the best.
We've referenced a couple of times already your son, Casey. He's a third baseman on the team. He's got another year left. He's in the class of 2023, committed to Texas recently. Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that. What overall has been the experience of coaching your son here?
It's been awesome. This has been a long time coming. Obviously, I didn't know what God had planned for me when he was born, if I'd still be coaching. But as we've progressed through this, and I took the job when he was 4 years old, I took the job here at Orange Lutheran when he was 4 years old, and seeing him go from the little kid throwing rocks out behind Hart Park to climbing the trees and the bleachers to bat boying, and now being in a uniform representing what it means to be a Lancer, it's been awesome to see that growth. I think he as a player deserves all the credit. I told him a long time ago, he better be really good or really bad, because I can't win if he's somewhere in the middle. And, he's taken it to another level. He loves the game, which is, for a coach, that's in itself very large, because you always worry that as a coach, it's too much baseball and they're going to burn out. So it's really been cool to see how much he loves the game, how much time he puts into it, and how he's been a sponge. He's been able to watch all those great players, a lot of those ones we talked about over the course of time. He's been in the dugout during tight games and seeds. So the baseball IQ piece is there, and I think he's just worked so hard on his body and on his game that he's really starting to see the benefits. And it's pretty cool to look back and see the season he had. He just had a tremendous season. He was named co-MVP of the Trinity League recently, which isn't even public at the time of this recording, but I think he hit 360 with 6 home runs and 30 RBIs or something. It's a pretty tremendous year, and I'm just happy to see him having the success. I don't think you can explain the adversity that he's had to deal with being a coach's son. He's constantly teased or harassed about being the coach's kid and getting the things that he's gotten because of that. And
that's an interesting term that you used, adversity, because usually the stereotype about the coach's kid is they have it easy. I would imagine that's not the case, but going as far to say it's adversity. Yeah, no,
I think, obviously you could argue there's a lot of things that are easier because I'm the coach, the communication piece, he's not late for practice because he knows what time it is. And those kinds of things make it a lot easier. There's no doubt about it. And I don't want to take from that, but I think the adversity that I'm referring to is the adversity of the peers, right? Both on his teams growing up, guys he played against, it's real easy to say, hey, he got that award, or he had that, or he played, or he's hitting here or playing there because dad's the coach. And, constantly over the course of his 2 years on varsity, we've gone and played other opponents that out of the dugout, all you hear is daddy ball and, oh, you should be playing shortstop because your dad's a coach. And, for him to deal with that and become the player he has, and just to be as locked in and he's very, very even keel, which I think is a great quality in any baseball player. He doesn't let those things affect him. And, you saw it Friday. I mean, it was a weepy moment for me as dad when he hit a, full count, 2 out, top of the 7th, 3-run homer to tie the game and extend our season, even though, it was only another inning. I mean, he gave us a chance to win that baseball game late, and it was a pretty cool at bat. One of those, you're in the yard when he's a 4-year-old kid and you're playing catch, thinking about maybe he'll get this opportunity sometime and I need to prepare him for it. And then it comes up and he came through big.
With his evolution into a bona fide prospect also comes his recruitment to big-time baseball schools like Texas. That gives you the experience of going through the recruitment process, both as a parent and as a coach. Obviously, you've had several players get recruited to those big-time programs, but none of them have been your own son.
Right.
What sort of added perspective did that give you, being able to go through that process as both roles simultaneously?
Oh, man, an infinite amount of experience that I went through with that. It changed a lot of my outlook on things. I think going through it really, it not necessarily changed my view on it, but just going through the whole process, seeing the conversation, seeing the communication from coaches, seeing, all of those things and the ups and the downs of the whole thing, where you think, oh, one thing's happening and then it changes. I think that the toughest thing for parents is to not feel like your son's fallen behind. We see a lot of 14, 15-year-old kids committing to colleges now. And when our son is not getting offers or not committing, we feel like we're failing our kids, or maybe we're not doing the right things. And then we want to spend money and put them in showcases or do something to kind of catch them up. And what I learned over that is the path is different for everybody. I've said that for a long time as a coach. We can't pave the path for our kids, right? We have to pave our kids for the path. Well, as a recruit, I think it's the same thing. Like, when they're ready, the coaches are going to be around. You don't need to do anything more to do that. And I really think that if you can wait as long as you possibly can, it's the best thing for you. My son had a couple of offers when he was a freshman, and one of them was very, very exciting for me as a dad, like a dream school that you'd love your kid to go play at, and it was a good offer. And, there was a part of me that wanted him to commit as a freshman, even though I had always said, I want you to wait as long as I can. I mean, I didn't know that there'd be a situation better. And, he waited, and he said he just wasn't ready, and it was his timeline. And, the truth of the matter is, Texas was probably the last school involved in his recruiting process, and that's where he ended up committing to. So he had never brought it up really until late in his, in that recruiting cycle, if you will. And then, some things happen. It's funny how God works. And then he visits Texas, and 10 minutes into his trip, he's like, this is the place I want to be, So I think wait, and don't try to keep up with the Joneses. We live in a world where kids want to self-promote, and parents want to self-promote, and they want to send all their kids highlight videos, and they want to tag the college coaches in them. And I think that's great. I tell our players, don't self-promote. We'll promote you. You know what I mean? If there's something that you want out there, let another person promote you, because I think that there's just too much of that throwing our name around, just trying to, well, you're not sending the at-bats of the, the strikeouts or the failures. You're only posting an at-bat of a home run once a month. What are the other things? And I think that there's so much more detail and proof, if you will, from a high school coach or even a club ball coach when they post things about a player. So I think go out, just continue to develop as a player, become the best player. As parents, do as much as you can to give your player that opportunity to reach his full potential with the skills that God's blessed him with. And the rest of it will take care of itself. Don't be chasing the schools. They'll come after you when you're ready.
with the evolution of social media and us getting to the point where now if you own a smartphone, you can be your own PR director, you can be your own hype man. Now, obviously, with the prominence of NIL deals, even at the high school level, is there a way that athletes can use their own personal platforms, their own personal branding to raise their profile in a way that will help them?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously, I mean, social media is an amazing resource for kids now, and I think that, posting certain things and successes and whatnot they're great. I just, I see a lot of kids that only post the good things or only, target certain coaches when they post, and I think that if they just realize that, hey, it's a bigger hopefully you want a bigger audience than just one or two coaches, because you're going to have a lot of options. And all of our kids grow up, thinking, oh, Vanderbilt or Texas or TCU, because or UCLA, because they're the ones in the paper, when they really have no idea what the coaches are like. They really have no idea what the school schedule is like. They really have no idea where they're going to be living. Yet they see these guys on social media. They see them having success in the College World Series, whatever it might be, and all of a sudden they want to go there just because they're good. Well, that might not be the best fit, right? So I get a little bit off on a tangent here, but I think social media definitely has its purposes, and I think it can definitely be taken advantage of. I just encourage parents and kids not to overuse it and just sell themselves. I think that when you go out and just continue to do things the right way and you're successful on the field, people are going to be posting about you. And that's really what you want. When people start posting about your son or your player, that's when they're ready to be recruited. When you have to send it yourself, I don't know that they're quite ready. That's just my opinion.
So much of your role as a coach is, obviously we talked about the character development aspect of it, but so much of your role is getting those players ready to be recruited or to be drafted, and that's something that can be overwhelming for a high school athlete. How do you help your players manage the pressure of playing in front of scouts and playing in front of recruiters?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, it really is, and I think every kid is different, right? Some of them feel a lot of that pressure, some of them don't, Our biggest thing is just go be you, There's no reason to try to do more, and God's fate is, God's plan is going to come to fruition no matter what. You can't control that. So it goes back to the constant communication about you can't pave the path, All of us a week ago envisioned us winning a CIF title, and now it's all over, We never know what curveball God's going to throw to us. And I think that that's the important piece for our players, to just go out and play the game at the same level every single day, whether you're playing in front of professional scouts or you're playing for the last day ever. It should be the same, right? Because if it's not the same, then somewhere you're taking more of a step towards mediocrity. We want to try to be perfect in everything that we do. We're obviously never going to be perfect, but every day should be that same mentality. It doesn't matter who's in the stands. I think that, the big thing here, and the nice thing about Orange Lutheran to help with that is, we draw a big crowd. We play at night. We have a lot of young kids that watch our players. So we talk about, hey, when you were a little kid going to the big league game and you were watching your idol, what did you want to see? That's what you should be on the field. And if we can create that constant, persona, whatever word you want to use there, and be consistent in everything, then we're going to be more consistent in our game as well.
When you have representatives from major league clubs or big time universities come out and watch your guys, obviously they're there to see the athlete's performance on the field, but presumably you're involved in those conversations as well. When they come to you and they're asking about a particular athlete, what is it that they want to see? What is it that they want to know? Can you kind of take us inside those conversations and what they're like?
Yeah, all of them kind of take there's a common theme throughout most of them, but a lot of them take different paths based on the individual. I think most of the time it's work ethic, it's character, it's kind of clubhouse guy, The scouts are pretty stubborn in their ways and what they see from a physical aspect on the field, so they want to know, where there might be areas of weakness and what they need to be aware of. I think most of those conversations with professional scouts is talking about the failures or the weaknesses. When you talk to college scouts, it's more about what can they do. When you talk to professional scouts, it's more about what can't they do. Why should we not invest this money in this player? And so typically most of them are, how teammates respond to them. How is the leadership skills? How's the work ethic in the weight room? How's their relationships with teachers? How's the family life? Is the kid mature enough to go out and play pro ball living out of a suitcase? Those are typically the kinds of questions that are asked. And so they really want to get a behind the scenes look at the player, if you will, that they don't get to see on the field.
I think one of the most interesting conversations that I've had on this show, we had a scout for the Chicago Cubs on the program, and he was telling us about the 2 to 8 scale for ranking prospects, and 8 is a Hall of Famer, and he's only given out 1 8 his entire career. Wow. And it was to Clayton Kershaw when he was pitching in single A ball. Wow. He saw him pitch. He was going to rate him a 7. He rated him an 8 after he spoke with him the next day while he was charting pitches, asked him, hey, Clayton, what was that last pitch? He was able to tell him, really showing that he was paying attention, that he was a true student of the game. And because of that, he got that bump from 7 to 8. Well, if you're talking about a guy in high school or college pre-draft, that could be hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of difference. Do you think your players understand that attitude, attention, all of those things are so big of a part of it, maybe not more than, but almost as important as your play on the field? I
think they are just as important. I really do. I think when our players get here, they don't know all of those things, but hopefully when they graduate, when they're leaving or ready for that stage, they do know, because we talk about it a lot of times. I think we do a great job of identifying those players at a young age and really trying to prepare them for this process. We have Derek Curiel, who's the number 1 ranked player in the 25 class, so he's a sophomore this year, that's already got a lot of that, talk as a young kid. And I think that the opportunity that we have to groom him through that and prepare him for that process and what it looks like as a senior, is an unbelievable experience, and just grateful for that opportunity.
Another big avenue for player development are all-star teams, national teams, tournaments. You've had plenty of experience coaching several of those teams. I want to talk about when you coached Team California in the high school baseball national championship. One of the unique things that I noticed about that is that the teams were selected not just by yourself, but scouts, agents, college coaches. These are people that are directly going to be looking at these athletes. How insightful was that for you to be a part of that selection process and see exactly who these people wanted to see and why?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I'm actually going through it right now because I'm helping with the team this year. Don Barbara at St. John Bosco and Brett Kay and myself are going to be coaching the team this year. And so we're picking the athletes now. But we're trying to put a product on the field that represents the state of California, and we all know that the state of California has as good a baseball as anybody. And so when we go out and compete this year, it's going to be at Alex Box Stadium and at LSU. When we take a group of kids out there, we want the best players. But again, it goes back to the character and makeup piece. And so you get to hear a lot of that when I'm putting together a team from the state of California, or when we are as coaches. We don't know anything more than what we see on social media. If we look at Perfect Game or PBR or Prospect Pipeline or 5Tool, whatever it might be, we're using all those to get information on players, but I don't get to see a lot of those players, with the schedule that we have. I don't get to get up to Northern California and find that. So we rely on agents and scouts. Obviously the agents are trying to promote their players, their athletes. And so we take that. There's one angle of that you take. Obviously, they kind of put them on the map, and then you talk to scouts, and then what we call head coaches, So we just try to put together the best team that we possibly can. I think that in 2019, it was the first year of that event, and it was a little bit different, but we're really being a little more selective in the process this year. And not to take anything from, we had a great group of guys we put together in 2019, but I think that there was a lot of things that we learned through that process. And, when you're trying to put a team together to go win, it's a little different than just finding the team of best players. And so we got to find that puzzle that helps us to be successful. But it's just a great event.
You've also had significant involvement with the Team USA, national baseball teams, and developmental organizations. You won a silver medal in international play in 2014. On a personal note, I know that it was really special for you not just to go in there and win baseball games, but also to represent your country as well.
Oh, 100%. There's nothing like it. I mean, I think that, it's a completely different, level than Orange Lutheran High School, when you get to put USA across your chest and you go overseas and you're representing the whole country, there is nothing that can replace that. It's a lot different, I think, because you don't have the time to develop per se. You're just picking the best athletes and then trying to create the best team that you can in a very short period of time. So it makes it difficult. But when you toe the foul line for the national anthem before the game and you hear the national anthem in another country and then you hear theirs, it's just, there is nothing greater than that. I guess serving your country, the armed forces, is probably, it's definitely more important than coaching a team that represent it. But I think, when you're coaching a team, you kind of feel that you're representing the whole country and to have that opportunity to be picked, to be selected, to be a part of that. And I've been part of it for the last 10 years. It's definitely nothing I take for granted when I wear that hat or that T-shirt around. There's a lot of pride that goes into that, and it's just an unbelievable organization, and I'm just very grateful to have that opportunity.
Yeah, and obviously international competition exists in every sport, but there seems to be something a little extra special about putting on that Team USA uniform on the baseball diamond. Yeah,
no question. I first got asked to get involved with USA in 2013, and I'll never forget it. I started with the 12U group in 2013 just as an auxiliary coach. I helped them before they left. I wasn't part of the staff, but we got to go to Dodger Stadium, and we got there early, and for batting practice, we got to go in Tommy Lasorda's office and talk with him a while. And he said it best, this is our sport. This is USA, this is our national pastime. And we're there to uphold the integrity of that. And there's no greater feeling than going out and doing it.
You also coached on the 13 and 14 under teams. And last year, among the coaches on staff with you was Troy Tulowitzki. Right. 5-time All-Star, Gold Glover, one of the best shortstops in the game when he was in his prime. For an athlete that young, we're talking about 13, 14-year-old kids, how much value does it hold to be coached by a player of that caliber at such a young age?
Yeah, well, I think it really depends on the athlete, on the big leaguer. Troy Tulowitzki, I can't even begin to tell you how impressed I was with him in that week. As a matter of fact, that week that I spent with him is a big reason why my son ended up choosing Texas, because he's an assistant at Texas now. And, just the impact that he had on those kids in a 5 or 6 day period was unbelievable. And I've been around long enough doing camps and clinics or showcases or wherever to have a lot of former big leaguers involved. But there's very few that actually come out and make an impact based on what they do, not what they did. And I think that a lot of them make an impact because of what they did as a player, and kids automatically have that wow factor. But when you have a guy like Coach Tulowitzki that was in the grind with those kids, he was out there taking ground balls. He was sweating. It was 110 degrees and humidity, and he's out there working and really grinding the kids. Man, I can't tell you of a better experience that I've ever had with a former big leaguer as a coach, and then seeing the impact that he had on those players. And, I know in talking to him and developing that relationship since last August, with Tulo's, he's a coach, and I think he ended his own career a little bit early because he wanted to coach. I think he could still be playing. If you see him take ground balls and stuff, he could still have a job in the major leagues. But he loves to coach, and he's very passionate about it, and he's just going to have a huge impact on a lot of kids. I'm just very lucky my son's going to get to play with him.
Well, and I imagine that's just such a powerful message to a young athlete to see a guy like that who he's made his all-star teams, he's made his tens of millions of dollars, and he's out there doing the same thing you're doing as a teenager.
Yeah, it's what makes baseball great, right? It's just such a small fraternity, and there's such an appreciation for guys that, have played the game. And I think that we all, and even those guys that made the big leagues, they know, how tough that was, and we respect what they went through to get there. And there's just, it doesn't matter. You go overseas, you start talking baseball, you're at a game, and it just strikes up conversation. There's so many relationships, so many experiences that I've had over my life just because of baseball. And this is, the one with Tulo is just another example of that. But I think that's what's so great. It's the trips to Arizona with my son, and and the family, and meeting other families. It's the hanging out at a tournament where they're playing 3 games in a day. And that piece of it that I really enjoy the ride of, and I think that that's the best part about baseball.
When you're dealing with an athlete that young, surely there's a difference in the way that you coach that athlete versus a player on your high school team. What are, from a developmental perspective, what are the things you're working on, and what are the benchmarks of success when you're dealing with a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid?
Yeah, the biggest difference between the USA factor, again, is the time. Like the development piece isn't there. So believe it or not, there's a lot more similarities, I think, between those young men and then our high school kids, because ultimately you're trying to go out and win a gold medal. You're trying to go win a championship, which is what you're trying to achieve at the high school level, win a championship, right? I think that obviously when you're working with 12-year-olds, there's a lot more factors that come into play. I mean, they've never been in a hotel room without their parents. They've never been on an airplane without their parents. Many of them had never been on an airplane. So there's a lot more factors that go into it on the field. I mean, those kids were so advanced at 12 to 14 years old, that they actually are coached very similar to the high school guys, probably more so than you think. I think the biggest focus is the work ethic piece. Those kids at 12 years old are there because a lot of times because of their physical gifts that they've been given from God. They're bigger, stronger, faster at 12 years old than anybody else, and they can go out and have more success. But really taking those abilities and those skills that they were blessed with and teaching them how to develop those skills and use them to the best of their abilities. And that experience at USA gives you that opportunity. And
it's not just them who are down there developing your skills, it's you as well. I mean, if you look at the roster of coaches on those staffs, it's a who's who of very prominent baseball people, and those are people that you get to share an office with. You get to be a sponge, soak it up from them. And what's sort of the impact of being around those people, being in that environment, and how do you kind of bring all that knowledge back here and make you a better coach over here at Orange Lutheran?
It's constant growth. We're always trying to grow, and I have through the USA stuff, just to speak into what you're talking about, I mean, I have a group we call the Nectons. It's about 16 coaches from across the country that we're on social media with each other, Marco Polo, WhatsApp, exchanging messages daily. I mean, there's days where there's 100 messages that go back and forth in a day between coaches, and it might be, talking about a situation. It might be talking about how we do certain things in our program. It might lead to something else, but yeah, I've been just so blessed through all those opportunities to meet so many coaches, like you said. And like I said to the young coaches, I mean, learn, have an open mind, right? And it's got to be a growth mindset, that we're always trying to stay ahead of the game, because, the kids, I don't want to say the kids are different, but the times of coaching kids now is way different than it was when I started 24 years ago. And they respond differently, and they're raised differently, and there's different outlooks on things, and we have social media, and there's just, so many different things. Now we have to stay above, and I think that it's like when you're doing a research paper, the more books that you use to write that research paper, the more references you have, the more detailed your paper is going to be. And I think it's the same thing for a coach. The more references you have in talking to other coaches, the better coach you're going to be.
Before we go, I want to get into some MLB draft talk with you. Obviously, we spoke at the beginning of the show about Mikey Romero. He's an LSU commit, the number 58 MLB draft prospect, a shortstop. He's drawn comparisons to Marcelo Meyer, last year's number 4 pick, rather, first rounder to the Boston Red Sox. What is an MLB team going to get out of him?
Man, they're just going to get a solid, lock-in guy, I think, at shortstop for a long time. I really believe that he's going to play in the major leagues for a long time. I think that his skill set speaks for itself. I mean, he's one of the best hitters that I've ever coached, and I've been fortunate to coach some good ones. He has power. He's got the ability to hit the ball to all fields. He only struck out 7 times this year in something like 120 at-bats. It's just a very, very advanced skill set from an offensive standpoint. Then I think the baseball IQ piece is he's a coach on the field. He just understands the game. He knows where to be and when to be there at all times. And I just think that, I've told scouts this all the time. I wouldn't have a problem taking him with the first pick in the draft if I was drafting. That's what I think of him. And there's a lot of good players. I'm not saying that there's not, but I would not be afraid to draft him with my first overall pick, knowing that he's probably going to be a mainstay for me for a long time.
and I know you've got a number of other players who are either going to hear their names called or demand a significant amount of attention in these next couple of months. You want to just give us one last preview of everybody that we might see their names called?
Yeah, well, we have a lot of prospects on this team that could be drafted. It's interesting now with the slot values and whatnot. We've seen a lot of kids that don't get drafted because the number that they put on their signability, if you will, or what it's going to take to sign them isn't enough to lure them away from college, and so they just don't even get drafted. So we have 5 seniors that have been talked about by professional scouts. I'm hoping that they get their opportunity to be drafted. But after Mikey, it's Oliver Santos, big left-handed pitcher, 6'5" left-handed pitcher, committed to Duke. Upper 80s, lower 90s guy, 4-pitch mix. Just, it's tough to find left-handed pitching at that level, and he's one of the best in the country. So with the Duke scholarship, we'll see. We'll see. They're all going to have different numbers. Carson Bowen, to me, is the best catcher in the country. He's been a 4-year starter for us. He played the outfield as a freshman and pitched a little bit, but he's been behind the plate for the last 3 years. TCU commit, he's as good a catch and throw guy as I've ever had, and I think the last month of the season we really saw his abilities as an offensive player. I just hope that the professional scouts didn't write that piece off, because he's really an advanced hitter, and when you can catch and throw like that, it's tough to find as well. So Carson Bowen could be drafted. Luis Rodriguez, I can't begin to say how much that I think this kid would be an asset to any organization. He's committed to TCU as well. But I kind of consider him like a Mariano Rivera, the way he cuts the baseball, and I don't think that I've had, he's right up there with Max.
That's a big name you're throwing out there.
Yeah, well, he throws a cut fastball like Mariano did, but for me, the telltale sign in whether kids can pitch is the success rate, right? How they do. I know it's easy to look at a 95 to 98 mile an hour fastball and say he's a number one prospect. Well, I'd rather have the guy like Luis Rodriguez that goes out and competes at 87 to 91 miles an hour, that throws strikes that's going to keep you in the game, and people don't barrel up very often. I just think his value, is off the charts, and it's good if he goes to school too. Don't get me wrong. But I think that he's not the big 6'5" body, and he doesn't throw 95 miles an hour. But he's put up video game numbers, like you said earlier. Very, very comparable to what Max Radjic did when he was here as a Lancer, and
Radjic himself should be a pretty high pick this year.
He definitely should. Yeah, we'll see. He's been throwing it really well for UCLA lately. And then Gabe Miranda, we got a power hitting left-handed first baseman. And again, the power tool is such an asset in today's game. So all of those guys, all 5 of them have been talked about, potential draft picks. We'll see. As a coach, I think, I'm there to lead them. Not all kids, are ready to go either direction. It just depends on the kid. But I'm excited to see what happens for both those guys in the next couple months. I think we got 2 months till the draft now, since it's in July. But no matter what, those kids are going to be successful.
You talked a bit ago about draftability, signability, and some of the options that these players have to weigh when they do hear their name called. To the players that are weighing between signing that first professional contract or going to a scholarship program like a Duke or a TCU, or going the JUCO route where they can go year to year, what's your advice to those players who are weighing between those options?
I think they have to, again, it's going to find as many resources as you can to get the best thing. There's so many different things, and I think as a coach, I have a responsibility to talk about where I see them being the most successful, and I'm not afraid to say that. But I think that when you go out, there's a big difference between the maturity levels of a kid that's ready to go out and play professional baseball. That you're going to be the youngest one there if you sign out of high school. You're going to be around a lot of, older kids. You're going to be living out of a suitcase. Are you ready for that from a mature standpoint? I think that you need to look at, history. There are no absolutes in this thing. Just because you're drafted first overall doesn't mean you're going to go play in the big leagues.
Mark Appel.
Yeah, exactly. It just there are no absolutes. So I think it's very important that kids look at their own, strengths and weaknesses. They really communicate with their families. I mean, some kids, are going to be successful as students, some aren't. So you have to take in as many different things and look at as many different areas as you possibly can to see what's going to be the most successful. And ultimately, it's got to be the player's decision. I think that we're just, as coaches, one of those resources to give them our experiences, talk about it. And we've seen both come out of here. I mean, Jason Martin has made it to the big leagues now, and he signed out of high school. Cole Winn looks like he's going to make it to the big leagues, but we've had guys that signed out of high school that are not doing as well. We had Garrett Cole come through here before me, but obviously he went the college route and it turned out very good for him. So, again, I don't think that there's any, there's definitely not any absolutes, but I don't know that there's one way to answer that. I think you have to look at it for each player and see what the best situation is for them.
All right, well, that's going to do it on this episode of the Cannon Sports Podcast. Coach Eric Borba, we want to congratulate you on a tremendous season with Orange Lutheran and wish all of your outgoing players the best of luck in college, in the pros, wherever they happen to end up.
Thank you very much. Really enjoyed talking with you.
Thanks for joining the show, and we appreciate all of you for tuning in as well. We will see you next time on the Cannon Sports Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe and follow on Instagram at Cannon Sports, TikTok at Cannon Sports Official, and of course, cannonsports.com for all your sporting goods needs.